We're Laura and Cindy, and you're listening to the Holistic Horsemanship and Husbandry podcast, where we talk about natural horsekeeping and deepening your connection with your horse. I'm Laura, your horse care mentor. I teach natural horse management practices after working with over 200 horses and seeing how current industry standards are compromising the health of the horse.
And I'm Cindy, your horsemanship mentor, offering a proven and unique approach to creating deep connections with your horses from 20 plus years of experience, including working with wild Mustangs. If you enjoy this conversation, please leave us a 5-star review wherever you're listening to us so we can get this podcast into the ears of more passionate horse people. So today's episode, we're going to talk a little bit about trail riding. And how do you set yourself and your horse up for success? I have two people in my life who are very, very important to me, and they are both nurses. One works in the ED, and one actually works in a different part of the hospital. But what they both learned as they were going through nursing school is that one of the most common forms of horse injuries where people are being life flighted out or ATV'd out is on the trail. And when I heard that, it struck me kind of by surprise, but not really. Because I've learned over the years that trail riding is more than the common person thinks. The average person thinks that trail riding is no big deal. And you will even hear people say, like sitting around a campfire or sitting around at a clinic or just sitting around with a bunch of people who have horses. And one does endurance and one does jumping and one does dressage and one does 3-day eventing. And then it comes to the woman who is, kind of dressed in Western clothes or casual riding clothes. And she says, "Oh, I just do trail riding." And I have seen women shrink when they say,
No.
"I just do trail riding." And what I've learned over the years of becoming the best I can be for my horse is that trail riding is one of the most difficult things to do with your horse because you're taking them out into the unknown. So we talk about personal awareness, horse awareness, and environment awareness, and you throw in the factor of the unknown. Okay, you're riding down. We have easy trails here in our community that a lot of people walk on and bike ride on, and they don't have any clue about horses. And so they come up behind your horse and, you're talking and visiting with your friend or you're riding alone and you're in the zone. And all of a sudden you hear, "Excuse me." And your horse jumps and you jump, and out of the corner of the eye, your horse sees a woman with a stroller or somebody on a bike. And they're like, "Wow." We have this one trail that rides along the river, and at times it's a raging river. And it's up on an incline, and it might take an ATV. I don't think it would actually take a vehicle, a full-size vehicle. And so there's not a lot of room for forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to get your horse over to the edge enough that these people can go by and hopefully don't startle your horse and your horse kicks them, And then when you're out in the high country, there's bears, there's mountain lions, there's deer, there's coyote, there's other riders. I mean, there is so much that your horses aren't used to versus, riding in an arena. And I'm not going to downplay that because horse shows, there's a lot of obstacles there. But what we wanted to talk about is, how do you set your horse up for a successful trail ride?
Yeah, because I think what Cindy meant by when you're in an arena is, show horses who ride in an arena every day, but never leave the property they're on or only just go to the next stall in the next arena are not prepared to go on the trail. And that is a huge mistake that people make. I used to board at a show barn, and one of the girls who had a huge horse who she had no control over was always asking to go out on the trail with me. And I didn't know a lot back then. I knew enough to know I didn't know a lot. And I was looking for every excuse in the world down to, I don't think your giant horse would fit in my trailer, to not go out on the trail with this girl because I knew what a train wreck it would be. Like, just because your horse listens to you really well over jumps in a controlled environment with fences and footing does not mean you need to go out on a trail. And I'm not saying that you suck or your horse sucks. It's just, it's different training and you have to take time to prepare them.
I found this experience I'm about to describe was absolutely mind-blowing. And I found it out in a way that was not the best way to find out. But I learned that some of these modalities that are done in an enclosed arena, that the rider isn't taught the basic things to keep your horse under control. They wear bits, they're taught to collect them up. They have a false sense of security within their enclosure, and yes, a horse can run away with you in an arena or in a jumping or environment. But what I discovered was I had been working with a client for quite some time, teaching her the basic groundwork. I was not her riding instructor. I was the groundwork to help her have a better relationship with her horse. And so I taught her the basic: put them out on a circle, get them to move their hindquarters, get them to move their forequarters, get them to back up, come forward, go sideways, communication. And then she was ready to hit the trails. So we hit the trails. Well, I wasn't a riding instructor. I made some assumptions there because all my students are taught on the ground. Can you get your horse to softly give a lateral bend with its head to the left, softly to the right? Can you get them to move their hindquarters softly left and right? Can you get them to back up? And then you get in the saddle and you do the same thing from a standstill. Can you give me your neck? Can you give me your nose without drifting and moving all around to settle down, and without me having to crank it hard? Can you do it both ways, nice and soft? Can you move your hindquarters nice and soft? Can you back up nice and soft? Because if I can't get my horse to do it if I can't get them to do it on the ground, I'm not going to get them to do it in the saddle. And if I can't get them to do it in the saddle at a standstill,
Definitely not happening at a panic bolt.
Right? Or, even when we ask them to pick up the pace by walk or trot, we engage their emotions, right? And emotions is energy in motion. And so if I can't get them to do it when their mind is soft and nothing is stimulating them, how will I get them to do it in motion? And so I did my check. I wasn't paying attention, right? We hit the trail. Well, something scared the horse, and the horse took off at a done run. And I'm yelling, bend him, bend him. And I'm watching her pull harder and harder on his face.
Like both hands is what she means by this.
With both hands, which is just collecting the horse. And the reason we collect the horse is to engage the hindquarters, because that's where all the power comes from.
Yes, like racehorses are actively leaning on their bit as leverage.
Yes. She thought she was pulling to stop him, when in reality what she needed to do was bend his neck gently and smoothly, not abruptly and hard. Because if you do it abruptly and hard, everybody, that's how they make horses fall down in the movies. They take that head away from them, displace that shoulder weight, and they go head over heels. So don't ever do that on a runaway horse. Just start milking it, milking the nose one way or the other, milking until you can get that horse. As soon as you can get that horse to start going in a circle, you've stopped the runaway. But when she finally, thank God there were people there that on other horses that helped intervene and get the stop because I was on a green horse and I couldn't, it was all I could do to make sure my horse didn't take off with hers. When I got up to her, I was like, why did you not bend him to a stop? She goes, I had no idea what you meant. And I felt like a loser as a trainer because I assumed that she was being taught that in her 2.5 years of riding in the arena, but they don't teach that. They actually, in this particular modality, they don't teach horses to back up until they're 6, which to me is crazy. But anyway.
I mean, to me, we shouldn't be riding horses until they're 6 anyway, so.
No, but you should be teaching them on the ground
Okay, fair.
when they're 6 months to back up, to move their neck left and right softly and move their hindquarters, to be a partner. To me, that's
yeah, that's valid.
You know? So that when you do get on the in the saddle when they're 6 years old, it's a nothing.
Yes.
It's like, oh, like, spreading butter on a piece of toast, left and right there.
So I want to talk a little bit about how important this stuff is because it's super boring. But think about the responsibility that you're asking your horse to take on. They're going to go out away from their home, away from their comfort zone, keep you safe, and show you a good time. And we just expect them to do that and do it well, and oftentimes we get mad at them if they don't. That's not fair. I'm a helmet rider. I'm a proud Western helmet wearer.
Me too.
I'm not here to harp on you about wearing a helmet. If you are having your kid ride without a helmet, I'm here to harp on that a little bit. You're an adult and you get to make your own choices. But when I put my helmet on, not only am I protecting myself, making sure that I get to go home to my family at the end of the day, I'm honoring the responsibility that my horse has in keeping me safe and saying, I understand that you could make a mistake that wasn't your fault because something completely out of your or I's control could happen. And I don't expect you to always know that keeping me in the saddle is your number one priority because that's not fair. So I wear my helmet just in case something horrible happens. It's not because every time I get in the saddle, I'm terrified for my life and I think I'm going to fall off. Like there's this stupid people have their chip on their shoulder about, you're not a real rider if you wear a helmet. I'm sorry, that's just uneducated. I wear a seatbelt when I'm in the car. I wear a helmet when I'm on my horse. And that's for me, and also because I honor my horse and I understand that it's a huge responsibility to be on her back. And it's not fair to her to put that on her. And then I'm looking at all these things that Cindy talked about. Doing them every time, taking 5 or 10 minutes to make sure they're all there before I go out on the trail every time means that the communication between my horse and I is muscle memory.
Mm-hmm.
Because when the bobcat jumps out or the firecracker goes off and when something pops off, I don't have time to think, wait, what do I do? Oh, that's right. Slide my hand down the rein, lean back, breathe out, bend the head around, make sure that this is back. I'm not thinking that. My body is just doing it. And the only way you do, and because I've done it so much, all I have to do is breathe out and slide my hand down the rein. And MJ will finish it for me because she knows what's coming. Because every ride for the past 6 years, we have taken 5 minutes to do an emergency stop in both directions from a walk, stop and back up, scoot your butt, scoot your fours before we go. And it's all there. And it's, sometimes it feels a little funny when I'm riding with someone new and I'm like, hey, I need these 5 minutes in the parking lot and I have to advocate for that. Sometimes I'm like, gosh, dang it, I don't have time for this, but then I need to make a shorter ride because that's how I set my horse up for success. I wear my helmet, I make sure my tack is in good shape and nothing's going to break and cause a dangerous situation. And I honor my horse by making sure that all of our communication when shit hits the fan is going to be muscle memory.
And the helmet thing, it took me a while to wear a helmet. I had to have a triple brain bleed from a horse hitting me in the head. And even then I didn't want to wear it until I had somebody I love and respect say, if you're not willing to do it for yourself, are you willing to do it for the people who will have to change your diapers because you didn't?
I'm going to say who this was, if that's okay with you.
Uh-huh.
This was Cindy's daughter who said this to her. And as a mom, now that I know this story, having imagine your kid saying, please wear a helmet so I don't have to change your diaper.
And to take that even deeper, when I had that triple brain bleed and was in neuro ICU for 3 days, my entire family flew in immediately. When I got out of the hospital, I climbed into my bed and I slept for 7 days straight. And my daughter was the one who would wake me up to give me my medication. She was the one who would wake me up so I would eat. And she was the one who would wake me up, or when I woke up, she would take me to the bathroom because I could not walk on my own because my clock was wrong so severely. So it was after I healed from all of that and got back in the saddle, and she realized I was not still wearing a helmet. She had that conversation with me, and she was here with me for 14 days before I could take care of myself. I mean, my husband was here, but he was taking care of the horses and working, and, he took the night shift so she could get some sleep. But it's important to think of those who love you.
Yeah.
But I mean, if Laura's reasons weren't enough,
Right.
then think of the ones who love you. The other thing is, if we don't ingrain that muscle memory, slide down your hand down one rein, gently pull that nose around to make that emergency stop. If we don't practice that and lay down that muscle memory, the muscle memory that comes in automatic is to pull back on both reins.
And to clench your ass, which is basically telling your horse to go fast.
Please hear that. We get tight because we're predators. And so when we get scared, we get tight and we grip on hard. So we're gripping with our horses, which to them is a predator on their back. And we're pulling back hard on their mouth, which is powering up their hindquarters. So you are trying to stop a horse, but what you're actually doing is turning them into a one powerful plower, driving those hind legs in and picking up speed. I teach my clients to sit at home watching TV with a lead rope tied to their feet, picking the reins up, sliding one hand down, picking the reins up, sliding one hand down. It's like playing a trombone with both hands, laying down that muscle memory. When they get that, pick up the reins, slide one hand down, and go out to your side, in towards your belly, like you're stirring a bowl of cookies. Slide it down, out to the side, in towards the belly button. That is the move that's going to save you and your horse. Stop second guessing yourself. Feeling stuck with your horse? Second guessing every decision? Wondering if you're really doing what's best? You're not alone. Most horse owners unknowingly make mistakes that lead to frustration, resistance, and even hidden health issues. That's why we're hosting the Secrets to the Horse-Human Experience you've always wanted, so you can gain the clarity, confidence, and knowledge to make the best choices for your horse. Sign up for this live event now at the link in the show notes and start transforming your partnership today.
Yeah. And all of this, as we briefly said, needs to happen on the ground before it can happen in the saddle.
Mm-hmm. And so, for those of you who aren't familiar to all of this, what that looks like on the ground is I will stand. I teach all the wild horses when they're being gentled. I teach all the youngsters that I'm starting or restarts. Is I stand. I was working with George today. George is a draft horse. George has got to be at least 17 hands high. And so I'm 5'2". And so I'm standing next to George where the saddle would be, where the stirrup would be. I put the lead rope over so it's like a rein. And I put one arm over his back like I'm sitting on him. And then I lift up the rein from, if I was on the back, I slide down the hand that is, so say I'm standing on his left side, my right hand's over his withers. It picks up the lead rope. I slide my left hand down and then I gently out towards the side, in towards my belly, like I'm making a half stir of the cookie dough. And I want him to gently bend that neck. And we do that a few times till it's nice and smooth. And then I turn with my belly button facing him. And I do that movement again, but then I take my right hand as if it were my left heel. And I gently tap where I would tap if I was sitting in the saddle to ask that hind quarters to move away from me. And I don't want it to go backwards. And I don't want it to go right hind foot, left hind foot steps next to it. I want the left hind foot to step in front of the right hind foot, which is a complete disengage of that hip.
Full crossover of legs.
Yep. And I do that on both sides until it's nice and smooth. And then I play with the backup. Same position. Arm over his withers, pick up the rein. I actually bump it lightly back and forth to get my horses to back up. And once they back up, then I release and we do it on the ground. We get that good. Then we do it in the saddle at a standstill. Then we do it in the saddle at a walk. And the other thing I wanted to touch on is Laura was saying, sometimes you're trailered out, you're all anxious to get on the trail, and you're the only one that has the common sense and the care and the want to set yourselves up for success mentality to do your safety check before you take off. And peer pressure hits you. It does. It does for Laura and I, and we know the value of it. So what I do is when I'm throwing that last tight on my cinch, I will ask him to bring his nose around.
Just do it right there on the ground.
Then I'll walk it to the other side and check my tack on the other side. Make sure my stirrups are good. Make sure I haven't missed. Is my latigo got a tear in it? Check your gear before you get on. Always. I will gently ask him to bring his nose around while I check it. And he holds his nose softly while I'm looking at his gear. And then I finish it with, now move your hind quarters. Then when I get in the saddle and we head out on the trail, I do this on the trail. If I'm on a 4-hour ride, I'm doing this a lot. Can you gently tip your nose to your left and let me see that full left eye, that full left nostril? Can you tip your nose to the right? Let me see that eye and that nostril. Can you kick your hind quarters 2 steps to the left while we're walking down the trail? Can you kick your hind quarters 2 steps to the right while we're walking down the trail? The reason I do this, you guys, first of all, I didn't get to do my safety check. So I'm doing it while we're, everybody else's horses are trying to run down the trail because they're fresh and we're on the new trail. I'm talking to my horse. Can you do these things? But we're on the trail for 2 hours. And it's a single track trail. And if you're not the one in the front, they're kind of tuning out. They're just following in the footsteps of the horse in front. I don't want that. I don't want my horse to be mindlessly traveling down the trail ever. So hey, can you take 2 steps to your left? Can your hindquarters take 2 steps to the left while your front feet keep walking straight? Can you tip your nose? Can you tip your nose? Can you go to the left? Can you go? People will laugh like, why does your horse keep weaving his butt down the trail?
Because I'm asking to. Thank you for noticing.
As I'm asking them to. How come your horse doesn't just look straight down the trail? Well, first of all, our horses shouldn't keep their head straight on a trail. If you watch a horse walking, they slightly, as the head bobs down, it tilts to the left. As it comes up, it's straight. As it comes down, it tilts to the right. That's what gives them monocular vision so that they can see completely around their environment. So first of all, let your horse move his head. But second of all, ask him, can you softly tilt? Either way. And that is keeping my horse and I's communication going the entire time we're on the trail.
Yeah.
Nobody numbs out. Nobody gets mindless. I don't get mindless. They don't get mindless. And that's what keeps us alert and successful.
And it's so important. I want to round back on something that you touched on because it's a mistake that I made in the early days and that I see a lot of people making. Just having flexion in your neck is not enough. You have to have the hind end crossover in your emergency stop because you can pin a horse's nose to your knee and they can still bolt forward. And then you get it
rubbernecking.
Really big wreck because your horse flips over on top of you because they can't see where they're going. The crossing over of the hind legs is what puts the momentum around in a circle instead of in a forward motion. And you might find yourself in a couple quick spins in that situation, but then your focus is just staying centered and I'm breathing and they're going to come out of it. MJ is a record spinner. That poor kid, first time she saw a sheep, she thought we were all dead. And I think we spun 30 times and I was ready to lean over the saddle and puke while I was spinning. But thank God I had a seasoned rider with me who would just stay with her, give her enough so she doesn't, just coaching me. She came down and she was fine. And I would not have been able to ride that if it was bolt home. I needed that. So pay attention in your pre-flight checks. Can you feel what it feels like in the saddle when your horse fully crosses over versus when they do a side-to-side shuffle with their feet? It feels different.
And how you know that they're doing that is if you walk your horse down a straight line, we're used to paying attention to their front legs. But if you can get in the habit of walking your horse along the rail in the saddle and loosen your lower back, and as they lift up a leg and step forward, their hip comes up. Your hip will rise when their hip rises and fall when their falls. If that's not happening, you're too tight in your back. Breathe into your back. But if you can get used to that feeling of the rise and the fall, then watch them on the ground when you ask them to disengage their hindquarters, as that will say we're asking for them to move their hindquarters to the right, which means their left hind leg should step in front of the right hind. When that happens, their left hip drops. And if you're not sure what that feels like, stand up straight. Well, stand up. Cross your left leg in front of your right leg, and you will feel your hip drop. So when you're in the saddle, because a lot of people are like, I can't tell if he's just stepping side by side or if he's truly crossing in front. If you can learn to feel your horse rising and falling your hips, that means your hips are in rhythm with his. And when you ask for that left hind leg to go in front of the right, you will feel your hip drop as theirs drops. And that's awareness, you guys.
And
That's faith.
it's developing your feel. A
It's faith.
really fun exercise to do with another person, a girlfriend, a riding buddy, a barn buddy, is practice calling it out to each other. You know, just go in a straight line in the arena or wherever you have a space to ride and call it out left, right, and have them watch and see if you're correct or if you're opposite, and then trade off and practice it. You practice it 4 or 5 times and you're gonna really feel it when you do it. And it's really fun to know what's going on underneath you when you're riding.
Well, and it's so important for the biomechanics of your horse
Really
because
important.
so many riders ride with a tight lower back, which is driving your pubic bone into their spine. If you can learn to soften your back, aka bring your belly button to your spine, that softens your lower back. Then you can feel your horse rising and falling, and it frees them up. I have found a round pen is the great place to practice this because if you can't feel it, close your eyes
Yeah.
and then you can feel it. And so, what that looks like is having a halter and a lead rope on your horse and having your friend be the one who's asking your horse to go in the circle so you can literally just put your hands on your hip bones, close your eyes and relax and feel. Now, don't try to make it happen, which we want to do. But yeah, practice with a buddy because I'll tell you what, it's a game changer for the comfort of your horse.
Mhm.
If you, and for you, really, if you can learn to soften that back to the point where your horse raises your hips up and down, that is relaxation in the saddle.
And you'll notice if something is off with your horse. When
Mm-hmm.
I was going through it all, I'm talking about this like it's past tense. I sure hope it still is when this episode publishes. But when I was going through all of MJ's tendon stuff, I could feel when she was sore because one of the hips wasn't rising as much as the other. And that was my tell. If I felt that, no riding. And you know, the more you can get in tune with that stuff, you can catch problems way earlier when you're asking your horse to do their hind end crossovers on the ground. If one leg is crossing way deeper than the other, there's something going on there. Pay attention, ask questions, see what's going on. Some horses physically are so messed up in the hind end, they cannot cross under. They're crow hopping instead of crossing under. Then it's time to do a lameness evaluation and find out what's going on. Because if you're having behavioral problems that you're having trouble chasing down, and then all of a sudden they can't do a very basic move, I'm guessing it's not actually behavioral.
I will pick up stiffness in the hindquarters of a horse when I'm giving a riding lesson. And I'll watch it for a while, and then I'll watch the rider. And oftentimes it's not the horse.
Yeah.
It's the rider who is stiffer in one of their hips than the other. And when I start talking to them and putting their awareness on their hips and trying to relax in the saddle and breathe in, I'll even put their horse on a halter and a lead line, and I'll take control of the horse so that they can focus on their body parts. So many of us can't even put our attention on isolated body parts of our own isolated body part on us. You know, like, can you tighten your Kegel muscles?
Oh.
Kegel muscles. Can you tighten your right butt cheek and leave your left one relaxed? Can you tighten your left quad and leave the right relaxed? You know, I mean, we ask our horses to be able to do that.
We
But
should be doing it when we're asking, but are we really?
now we're getting into advanced riding.
Yeah.
The reins and the seat and our feet are the second form of communicate. Well, actually, the third. First is intention. Second is feel through your body, do in your body what you want your horse to do. And third is you missed my cues. Let me show you with my reins and my feet.
Yeah.
But that is my point is oftentimes the horse is compensating his body to adjust to the stiffness of the rider.
Is your horse trying to tell you something? Your horse is always communicating, but are you listening? If you've ever struggled with tension, confusion, or resistance, it's not random. Your horse is trying to tell you something. In the Secrets to the Horse-Human Experience You've Always Wanted, we'll show you how to decode your horse's signals, fix miscommunication, and create a true partnership built on trust and understanding. Don't miss this live event. Save your spot now at the link in the show notes. I have degenerative L3 and L4. My bones in my spine. And people think I'm crazy, but like when I'm in a lot of pain, one of the great ways for me to loosen up my back is to just get on MJ and walk in a straight line and just move with her, and my muscles will relax. And people are like, what are you talking about? Horse riding makes your back better. And it's like, well, I'm not out there flying over jumps or sitting a really bouncy trot, but it is a way that, because I've worked on riding, that I can convince my body to loosen up when it's tightened down and trying to protect itself.
It also will also loosen up the ball of your hip in your hip socket.
Yeah.
When you can learn to relax and allow the horse to rise and fall, there's no resistance in your body. And it has been proven through therapeutic riding that people who are disabled in their bodies can learn to, can experience the loosening and stretching of toe tight of tendons and ligaments and muscles by just simply walking 2 or 3 times a week for a half an hour on a therapeutic horse.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I could go off in that whole direction, but we're not going to. So our whole point of this is the secret to a safe trail ride is to have the ability to have your horse willingly yield their neck left and right and their hindquarters left and right. And you have the muscle memory that you can do it with your eyes closed. And again, take it back to the arena or the round pen. When you feel like you've got it going good, put it to a walk, start at a standstill, put it to a walk, put it to a trot, put it to a canter. And if you're going to practice an emergency stop with speed, do not yank and crank that nose towards their shoulder. You will displace their weight and they can fall head over heel.
Yeah, you don't want to do a somersault with your horse.
An emergency stop at speed, everybody, is simply tip the nose and start circling and make your circle smaller and smaller. So it may be a 20 millimeter and a 20 meter circle, and then it gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until it's a stop. So you want to practice that at speed. Put them at a canter in the round pen on the rail. Then make it smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until you are at a standstill by the time you hit the middle. And I guarantee you guys, this is life-saving advice.
It's so serious that if I get on a horse and a horse doesn't have it, I'm not going riding.
Mm-mm.
Like, I'm not doing it. When MJ was very green, there were days when, it wasn't muscle memory yet, and she didn't have it that day. So we stayed back and we worked on that instead. If I'm riding a horse that isn't mine and that hole is there, sorry.
Yep. If you
Not
can't do it in the arena or the round pen, don't take them out and
Don't
tag
take it
them.
out on the trail.
If you can't do it outside of the round pen in the arena on the property where your horse lives, don't go out on the trail.
Yep. One of my checks used to be, can I leave the arena gate open? Because if you're pushing that on that, we certainly don't need to be going out on the trail.
Yep.
And if I can't do it on the ground, I'm not getting in the saddle.
Yep.
And it's
And
not a holier than art thou, I'm better than you because I do this. It's not a your horse sucks and therefore I'm not going to ride it. It's just this is how I keep me and the horse safe. And I want us all to have a really positive experience. And I'm not willing to risk what I know happens that's really, really bad. I'm not willing to risk the potential of what could happen without this. It's not worth it to me.
there's this saying that I teach people about that I learned as I was learning how to start horses. There is this thing called stiff, straight, and strong.
Mm-hmm.
Horses who do not trust their rider will choose stiff, straight, and strong over anything you try to do mechanically because they are in survival mode. So when Laura says, I'm not going to ride that horse, it's because the horse has not been given the time to learn to trust a human as a partner. The relationship has not been nurtured. Take the time to nurture it. And you guys, they're living, breathing beings. They have bad days.
Yeah.
They have cranky days, they have gloomy days, they have I don't feel good days, they have feistier than hell days. Allow them that, just like you want to be allowed to have those kind of days, right? That's what makes it a relationship and a partnership. Oh, yay, we're going trail riding. Here we go. I'm going to get Harry loaded up so I can go over and ride with so and so. And Harry has every indicator that today is not a trail riding day.
Yeah.
So it's a round pin day, or it's a day that Harry gets loved and groomed and grazes around the property together. We just spend time together because Harry's not having a day that wants to go trail riding. And I love Harry enough that I want to say, okay, buddy. And I also enjoy my trail riding enough that I want to fight with Harry the entire time we're on the trail.
And you don't want to have a huge episode that makes you scared to go out on the trail the next time.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Just really think about like, how am I making sure that this is bettering me and my horse? You're not bettering you and your horse by going out on the trail totally unprepared and not communicating without your relationship in place. Ever. You are totally bettering your horse by taking that 10 minutes at the start of the ride, maybe even just showing up 10 minutes before you know everybody else is going to be there to give you the time. And having that quiet time to check in and make sure you're set up to have a great ride.
And if you do that, you guys, and you really work on this with your horse to where it's actually a sign of comforting. So when they're spiraling or they're worried or they're bothered or you are, you do this to bring each other down and connected. And sometimes you're out on the trail and somebody else is struggling, like Laura with the sheep. And thank God she had somebody with her who had worked these things that they could keep their horse grounded and centered and a focal point for MJ and Laura to find as they sorted out the chaos and it got more grounded and grounded. That horse there with that rider on it that were steady and calm was the calm in the storm.
Yeah.
So Wouldn't it be great for you and your horse to be able to be that for somebody else who might be struggling?
Yeah, it's really nice to know that you have a toolbox when something goes sideways, because when you're out on the trail, you can't control the other horses and riders. You can't control the environment. You can't control the weather. You can't, there's so much that's out of your control. You have to have a toolbox to keep you safe. And the more confidence you have in it, the better it's going to work.
So take the time that it takes, you guys, and it'll pay off in dividends. You'll have a more confident horse, and you'll be a more confident rider, and you'll have a deeper level of trust in each other.
And you'll have so much more fun because you won't be scared of everything that's going to, you won't be scared of every rustle in the bush, because that's not fun.
And your horse won't be one of those horses that gets sold because he was a stupid idiot that hurt you on the trail.
Right.
Which we see a lot of.
Yeah. So yeah, guys, have fun. Enjoy your time on the trails because it's that time of year.
So if you have any questions about the topics covered in this episode, send us a message on our Facebook page, Holistic Horsemanship and Husbandry, and we will answer your question in a post on our page. You will be anonymous. We'll just take the question and provide our input, and we want to do it on the post so that we can all learn and grow together, because nobody knows everything. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. We want to remind you that we'll be here every second and fourth Tuesday of the month, following the golden rule. Have a plan, but always be willing to be flexible. Don't forget to connect with us using the links in the show notes below.
If you learned something new today, had an aha, or walked away with a valuable nugget, you can say thanks by leaving us a 5-star review on whatever platform you're listening on.